Bullying is a problem that reaches across cultures, communities, schools, peer groups, and families. The extent of the bullying problem varies across different communities, and while it's difficult to generalize the effects of bullying, there are a few ideas to consider when recognizing it as a serious problem. First, a 2011 study by Ohio State University looked at the monkey see, monkey do effect and found that the more children are exposed to violence at home, the more they normalize that violence and take it with them to school and throughout their lives. That may sound obvious, but the fact is there are a substantial number of children in this country seeing violence at home, and it is provoking those same kids to bring it to school and then tragically carry a violent outlook with them for the rest of their lives. Furthermore, a 2011 study by Harvard found that men who report having bullied classmates as children have a greater risk of committing acts of domestic violence in adulthood. Now, linking early school violence to later domestic violence is a significant, if not unfortunate, connection. If we already know that kids who are exposed to violence at home carry it with them to school, then it should be no surprise that those same kids are likely to carry violence into their future marriages and relationships as adults. The real tragedy lies therein. It would seem that if kids cycle bullying-related violence into their adult lives and have children themselves, the next generation sees that violence that has become normalized, and the cycle continues. The question then becomes, what action do we need to take? What should we do? Well, first, we need to dispel the argument that bullying is just kids being kids, and it has been done for decades, with earlier generations turning out fine as adults. That argument is quite disingenuous, if not completely short-sighted, to the effects that bullying has on young people. Sure, you may have turned out okay after being bullied as a child, but quite a few young people didn't transition so well. The most recent statistics on domestic violence from November 2011 is that 1 in 3 women will experience domestic violence in their lifetimes, and nearly 40% of men will commit an act of domestic violence. Obviously, the relation there isn't perfect. Not all men who commit domestic violence as adults bullied other people as children, for example. But when we look generally at human behavior, we must understand that there is a culture of violence in this country that in some ways is being perpetuated by people who grew up within that culture, committing acts of bullying against other children, only to turn around as violent adults. Bullying is not and can never be just kids being kids, especially not when we know those tendencies are carried over into adulthood. The bottom line is that we must do something. Child psychologists, teachers, and even parents know too much about children's mental development and the effect violence has young people to stand by and keep the status quo. Quite simply, the solution has to be multifaceted. It must involve parents, teachers, administrators, sports coaches, psychologists, and everyone else who deals with young people on a regular basis. And it starts with being able to understand what bullying looks like and making sure that no one passes the buck. Instead of passing a kid who has been bullied off to the next teacher or the next administrator to see that he gets help, we must commit to training teachers and parents and coaches to be proactive and understand how to get children and parents in front of the right psychologists and trained professionals who can look at bullying clinically and can work to prevent bullying practically in our schools and communities. We will never stop every instance of bullying from occurring in this country, but that doesn't mean it's right to sit by and let young people bully each other under the guise of kids just being kids. We owe more to our young people than that.